Welcome everybody to our town council meeting. Councilman Bear, would you lead us in the pledge, sir?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have a moment of silence for the men and women in the armed forces, our first responders, our medical community, and Officer Ella French, who was killed during the line of duty, was a former officer of the Chicago Police. Thank you. Okay. Any public comment, Walter?
Michael, you want to come down, please?
So just speaking as a vendor here tonight, you'll notice just a few things different about tonight's setup. For the sake of concision, I'll point out just two. One, I pulled the windscreens off the microphones, and two, I've positioned the microphones closer than normal. This is because in addition to competing with the AC, the fans, ambient noise, and background noise tonight, the microphones will also be competing with the wearing of masks, which have the dual effects of volume dampening and muffling of the voice. As such, my request on behalf of those watching at home and watching after the fact is twofold. One, please do make at least some sort of concerted effort to project. And two, please do make use of the microphones when addressing the council, and please do come to the podium if you're going to address the council in more than just a one or two word exchange, if that needs to take place. If you are also addressing from the council from a seated position in front of a microphone. And I guess Stephanie Barksdale's already been taken care of, so I don't need to speak towards that. So, sorry, I guess Stephanie Barksdale has already been taken care of, so I don't need to speak towards
We
that.
have Sue Du Bois taking the minutes for the town council.
Yeah, so if everybody could please
Thank you,
just
Sue.
remember to project tonight, that'd be really helpful.
Thank you, Mike.
End of the list, Mr. Mayor.
Oops. Sorry, 111 Willow Springs.
Okay, next.
Mayor, I'd like
Katie?
to suspend the rules to add two items to the agenda. Would be item number, let's say item number 10, has to do with the workforce housing fund. And item number 11, a donation from Milford River Trail.
Do I have a second on the motion?
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? David?
The donation of our other donations?
Yes.
I could.
Yeah, why don't
Want
we
me
do
to?
that? Yeah,
Okay.
Yes, please.
Okay, so suspend the rules and change what I just said, and add the river trail, which means I'm adding to item 3, under there, we'll be adding E as in Eddie, E. So 3E,
And that's for the river trail, right?
yes, correct, okay? And we had a second,
Second, yep.
and everybody okay with
Any
it?
other discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you.
Okay, moving right along, move to accept our consent agenda, item 3A, B, C, D, and E.
Second.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion?
I do have an
Yes.
item. I'd like to say for item C, the Parks and Rec Department would like to thank Mr. and Mrs. David R. DeBella of Litchfield, Connecticut for their $350 donation for Parks and Rec swim lessons. The check will be deposited in the program-specific self-sustaining account 104-500-500-53408. Then we also would like to thank the Circle Asphalt and Paving Company, who donated to Parks and Rec $1,000 to use for their 8-mile and 5K road races. Parks and Rec is requesting the donation be put in the recreation revenue account for New Milford Parks and Rec, and they thank the paving company. Also, on item D, the New Milford Youth Agency received a donation of $4,500, non-budgeted for contractual services from Fairfield University. It's the result of a CSDE Accelerate Connecticut Task Force to recruit students to serve in the College Corps Connecticut Summer Program. Youth Agency has a college student in the summer child care program. They are requesting these funds be placed in the grant revenue account, 1044-1900-4305, and to increase the contractual expense account, number 1044-1900-530000, by $4,500. Item E is to announce that the New Milford River Trail is going to donate $5,000 to the town of New Milford to be used towards the Patriots Way 1 mile downtown loop effort, and used for plantings and any necessary signage that will help better connect the riverfront to our downtown area. And they would like to say thank you to their generous supporters, because much of the money was donated to the town, being donated to the town, was raised during the Connecticut Community Foundation Give Local 36-hour event. So we thank all of those people.
Absolutely. We had a motion and a second.
No,
Dave?
just a question on D. So we're talking a transfer?
The $4,500 comes from Fairfield University.
Yeah, it's going into one
contractual,
account and then
right.
transferred to another.
And then it's going from that
So-
to add into their contractual
Right,
expense account.
Right.
Good?
So we'll be transferring it.
Yeah.
Any other discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you.
Item number 4, move to accept the following appointments. Housing Partnership, Katie Francis, term of August 9th, 2021 through January 31st, 2022. Board of Education, Eric Hansel, term of August 23rd, 2021 through January 31st, 2022. And also Board of Education, Leslie Sarich, term from August 23rd, 2021 to January 31st, 2022.
And for, thank you, Chris. And for clarifications, the reason for the additional time from 8:09 to 8:23 is in speaking to the Board of Ed Chair and the Superintendent, as they have a lot of things that are still on their plate. They want to give our 2 new members the just due to bring them up to speed, so they'd asked it to just be done in 2 weeks rather than today for the start date.
And Mr. Hansel is with us
Yep,
this evening?
Mr. Eric's right over there. If anybody would like to speak to Eric, and Eric, we want to thank you very much for
Thank you.
volunteering.
My pleasure.
As Dave can tell you, it's a lot of time and a lot of effort on those boards.
And we also thank Leslie, who
Absolutely.
she can't be here tonight, but
Dave?
to both
Yeah,
of you.
could you tell us what your goals are and a little bit about yourself, please?
Yeah, sure. Both my children are really well served by the Milford Public School System, and honestly, I just want to give back. I want to make sure that the other children have a similar positive experience, and so that's my goal and the only reason for doing this. By profession, I'm an aerospace engineer. I've been doing that for 30 years, and so hopefully I can bring some of that discipline of thought to help serve everyone.
Great.
Thanks.
Thank you, Eric. Again, appreciate
Great.
you
Welcome.
helping out.
Appreciate you stepping up, Eric.
Any other discussion on the motions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Item
Mr.
number
Mayor, I'm
5.
sorry.
Oops,
Dave?
sorry, Dave.
Yeah, no. 1/31/22 is the end date?
Actually, it should be 11/30/2021.
Thank you. I was like,
Dave, we need you in the mayor's office when we do these agendas.
I looked at that too.
What, I have to, what's it
Yes.
supposed to be?
11/30/2021, as that's the expiration date, because
Of
this is
the
an elected
terms.
position.
Oh, that's right. It's
Yep.
my
yeah, I
turn.
thought it
Okay.
was nice of you to get them up to speed for a year, but you're going to have a special election.
Okay. So that, we noted that, right,
Yep.
Susan? Okay.
It's noted in the minutes.
Okay, good. So item number 5, an update from Dr. Jeremy Levin.
Dr. Levin?
Mayor, councillors, thank you. I'll try and speak loudly. I've issued a report. I hope that you'll be able to circulate that. And I coupled that with a report from the American Academy of Pediatrics so that, to the last point, we could have some facts on how is COVID affecting kids. And a couple things I should just mention to you. Just like we said, unfortunately, and I apologize for missing the Thursday meeting, so I'm not caught up on that, but we are seeing a real breakthrough in this country at the moment. I spoke 2 days ago on Sunday, yesterday, to the Ministry of Health in Israel, which is a bellwether for what happens in this country. Essentially, they are now they've started anybody over the age of 60. They were kind enough to invite me to fly there. I said, thank you very much. I'll leave the $10,000 ticket and wait here to come and have my booster. They are boosting everybody. So we should fully expect that to follow through here. And that is based on data from Pfizer. The data which is in the Ministry of Health in Israel says everybody 8 months in has a booster. Doesn't matter whether you're Moderna, whether you're otherwise, whatever you have a booster. So in addition to which, they are at this stage mandating masks in schools, but they're not stopping schools. Okay, schools are reconvening, kids are doing what they do, but the reality is that they've also enhanced air handling in their schools. So they're probably the best vaccinated nation in the world. They have nearly no deaths at this stage, and they're being very, very cautious. With us, we're seeing the beginnings of a massive resurgence. Not necessarily here. We obviously are seeing it here, but not of the same scale that we're seeing in the South. The South will go through a terrible period over the next several months. What the report you'll read basically says we're now up more than 100,000 cases a day. That's just on the upswing, big time. The Delta variant has driven it up. And I think the deaths are now really over 500 per day. So we are seeing a very significant rise across the United States. Still low compared in what it was. Nearly every single person who's died is an unvaccinated person, every single one. And I think there's a handful who were vaccinated, and in fact what you find out is that they had very severe other illnesses and then got infected with Delta. What we are very clear about is the kids. So first of all, the kids at risk, some who are in school who are special needs kids. Between 25 and 30 million American families have a child with that situation. These are physical. I'm not talking about economically deprived. These are physical. These are genetically challenged kids in one way or another. Those kids are at risk, and they still do not have any vaccines for them, for the ones under 12. That we'll only know that in September. What you're also seeing, though, is that the number of new cases of children has doubled in the last week, from 38,000 to approximately 72,000. The real jump, we're going to see a lot more of that. But that's the bad news. The good news is we're still not seeing those kids falling. There are many cases of kids going into intensive care, but as a percentage of the total, it's a small percentage. The kids do manage to fight this off. There's an excellent report which is available. It's a bit spotty because reporting on kids at this stage appears to be dependent on the state, often by the specific school board and how they wish to report it. But the American Academy of Pediatrics and Children's Hospitals Association has got a very good report at this stage, which details the fact that the kids represent about 14.3% of the total cases of COVID right now, but that's already rising significantly from what it was. So as they go back to school, the concern is that the kids get in. We will know the data from Pfizer in September whether the kids can get vaccinated down to 2 years old. Moderna will be October roughly, at which point in time I'm hoping that we'll be able to advocate strongly for the children to be vaccinated. Bottom line right now is that we will see a massive rise in children, and while it doesn't seem dangerous to the children, it's exceptionally dangerous to the population at large. They are an enormous repository of circulating virus, and the only way that we're going to crack that is by making sure that the kids eventually get vaccinated. Same time, Texas and Florida are helping prolong and significantly increase the chances that we get a Delta variant, which is dangerous. We've seen Alpha, which was the first one. We're down to Delta. Unfortunately, unless we get to 70%, fully 70% vaccinated, fully vaccinated, we will not be able to stop this, and that is largely driven by the cases coming out of the south at the moment. Not here, we are spreading here, but you're an example of exactly why it's likely to be beaten back, masks and sensible social behavior. The fact is that's not occurring elsewhere, and the real risk is less that children die or get injured, that's bad, but that amongst the kids and the adults in which this is circulating, you get a bad variant. So I'm not happy at all, to be perfectly honest. This is what we all spoke about a year ago, and unfortunately we are seeing, as a consequence of those not taking the vaccine, we're seeing direct result, and now it's putting us all at risk, actually. So I do know that Pfizer is already developing a third set of vaccines, Moderna the same, AstraZeneca's behind that, actually. And then on the pills that cure you, we're still 2 years away. As we said previously, we are 2 years away from having a pill that will actually stop the virus when you're sick. So I think the steps that you've taken, Mayor and Council, are really admirable. I take my hat off to you if I had one. I don't have one. There's a couple back here, I'll take those off. But the reality is the town is doing better than most other places by setting an example. And I'll stop. The report is available. I'll happily answer any questions on it if you so wish.
Katie?
Thank you very much, Jeremy, for all that you have taught us. And I read an interesting article, and I just wanted to ask you what you thought about this, because if this is true, so I'm going to say it as if it is, that a child and or adult, whatever, could have no symptoms, and with this variant, they could have droplets in their nose. Okay, they've in some way aspirated or whatever. So they're standing next to me, and they sneeze or just breathe heavily, and that is sufficient with this variant to, if I'm not masked, even though I'm vaccinated, it's sufficient that it could be a potential danger to me. That's what I read. Is that true?
That's true.
Thank you.
It's the same level of infectivity as some of the worst other things like measles,
Right.
chickenpox.
And there's no way that people realize that they have it because they're asymptomatic, and, you know, unless you're testing yourself, and even if you are, you might not
That's
find out,
correct.
right?
It's unfortunate, but that is the fact.
So a
But-
mask is still, I think I've said this to everybody in this room, in the town probably, that being at the vaccination clinic, since it started, well over 8,000 people went in front of me this far and some closer, along with whoever else was with them. And neither I nor any other person who worked as a volunteer or nurse in the clinic came down with COVID. And at that time, some of us were not fully vaccinated, some volunteers were not vaccinated at all, but we made every single person that walked through the door wear a mask. So to me, if you do nothing else, and if you insist on not wanting to recognize science, or for whatever reason your health, you have the choice is yours to not do it, if you just wore a mask for the rest of us, would that help us to get closer to 70%?
Tremendously so. Tremendously so. It
That's
still
my
won't give
plea.
you immunity, but it will stop the spread. There's no doubt that it does.
Thank you.
Chris?
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Levin. I have a few questions. So, and piggybacking a little bit on what Katie was saying, I believe the alpha variant, we believed with children, especially smaller children, that the smaller respiratory capacity, they didn't really have the viral load to widely infect others. Has that changed with Delta?
No, the distinction between the two is, in part, I think what you're saying is similar to what Katie says. With the current variant, it is so infectious that all you need is a few drops and you're there. Mm-hmm. In the alpha, it wasn't. So it's possible that in the kids, because they don't have that larger volume, that they didn't dispel it. But the other thing which is also wasn't clear and is still not clear to me is whether those little guys actually developed a really superb immunity and killed off the virus, which is equally important. But remember, less than 300 kids died last year, little guys, under 2 years old died. It was enormously small.
Under 17 was 300.
No, global, 300 that they counted. It's US 300, I believe is the
And I
figure.
thought out of those 300, almost all of them had some form of...
Yes, they had something else.
And I appreciate you bringing some balance to the numbers as well, which we don't often get in the nightly news, that children are getting it. And I think children are a larger percentage of cases because they're now a larger percentage of the unvaccinated.
That's correct.
And, but the severity of it, they seem to do better than certainly adults. Because I think I read somewhere there might be 1,400 children in the nation hospitalized.
It's truly tiny.
Yeah.
It's truly tiny. It's not, if you had the same level of measles in this country, you'd see kids dying all the time, lots of them. It would be very high.
Right, okay. One last question. Pfizer was doing a clinical trial on pregnant women with their vaccine. I haven't been able to see any update on that. Is it's just ongoing and we just don't know yet?
There's an initial result out of Israel, actually, which shows that it has zero impact. And then there's going to be a full trial result, I believe, that's coming out in September.
September, okay. Great, thank you.
Dave?
Well, first of all, I heard you reference the measles, and along with polio, we have effectively, through science, eradicated it from this country. So from your report, what I'm gathering is, oh, sorry, Mike. So from your report, what I'm gathering is that our students in schools should be wearing masks.
Yes. In my opinion, obviously it's a choice and it's a very difficult one, but I think it is sensible.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, go ahead.
Mike?
Well, on the mask thing, we always talk about masks, and I wish Lisa's here tonight because it's right up her alley, says she's the health director, but we talk about masks as it's why not wear them if it's going to help, but especially when you look at schools and some that, I'll have to speak to the Board of Ed about, but there's a lot of negatives about wearing masks. Teaching, lack of oxygen all day long. Masks were intended for a shorter period of time. And we're going on with a little bit of a break over the summer. We're expecting these kids to wear masks for 2 years straight. I think that's too much. That's just my opinion, but there is a lot of facts out there supporting that, and kids are being left behind, especially English as a second language. It's very difficult to learn a new language if you can't see people's faces. And when you look at the risk factor, we say about 300 kids in the U.S. have died of COVID, 17 under, and most of those kids had pre-existing conditions. We had 800 kids last year die of pneumonia, and we're not changing things. But, as I said, that was something I wanted to talk to Lisa about. It's not Dr. Levin's preview. I did have a question, though. The WHO came out and said they don't want boosters until we can get more of the other countries vaccinated. So why would Israel... Because, the variants are going crazy. As you said, they're going crazy supposedly in Texas because there's not enough people vaccinated. You go to these countries where there's very few people vaccinated. Don't we want to stop them where they're starting? And I don't understand why Israel, where people have protection, and even after a certain period of time, they don't lose the protection, it just becomes less, correct? So why would we, and sorry if I'm using the word, why would we waste it on them when we really need to get the other countries vaccinated?
So there are a couple really important points there. Number one, I'm going to go back briefly. It is Lisa's purview, but in general, you want to stop giving a safe haven to a virus. So if masks can stop that, then that's great. And I understand all the other social issues that go with the kids. And I agree with you.
Not just social, there's some health negatives
Really?
about wearing a mask all the time.
The second, with regard to the WHO and actually the CDC, who have both basically said we need to get more people vaccinated, they're 100% correct. You've got to get everybody vaccinated as fast as you can. However, at the same time, you don't want to give a chance for the virus to reinfect others who have previously been vaccinated, and now they're basically dropping down. So Israel's policy statement was made specifically because they were worried that the Delta virus is so infectious that even those who were currently vaccinated would now actually fall victim to the new variant. It's a simple process to do that where you've got everything set up. We do not have everything set up in those other countries. You need to have approximately 4 billion doses distributed around the world. You should know that China has not approved any of these vaccines. So heaven help us if Delta gets a hold in China, because they don't have any, they've got nothing there. The Sinovac does not work, just to be honest. It does not work. And the only thing that's working there is social isolation and all the rest. So you are correct. It would be ideal to get everybody vaccinated first time. It's not going to happen. So what you're doing is you're fighting a rearguard action where you are vaccinated to strengthen that.
No, I know I can't remember where I read it, just said the WHO is telling countries that they're not recommending that.
The WHO imperative must be to get those 4 billion into arms. They haven't done a good job of it so far, unfortunately.
Can you, and another question, it's a little different, but there's so many stats out there, but I found stats on all the countries in the world, and I heard about how bad India had it and how it was going rampant in there. Has India gotten things under control, or is it still rampant there? And what's the percentage of vaccinated?
So nobody knows, is the answer. I spoke to Dr. Kiran Mazumdar-Shaw, who runs the largest biotech company in India. It's based in Bangalore. She herself had it, and so did her family. And she said the figures, she is a noted figure in the healthcare system there. Dr. Mazumdar-Shaw tells me, and this is actually 2 days ago, she advises me that the Indian government has no clue how many people are infected, has no clue how many people have died, and has no clue what the current status is of the spread.
Yeah, because I was just noticing their numbers are like deaths per million or a quarter of ours, and I'm like, that just seems strange from what you're hearing.
They're just not testing. And when people are dying, in general, in the small little villages, they are basically burnt almost immediately. So the real question will be at the end of the year, can they total the difference from the numbers of dead on the tax rolls versus the number that should be dead? I mean, it's a brutal calculus.
Doug?
Thank you, Dr. Levin. Just a couple quick questions. You could probably rattle the answers off pretty quick. So you mentioned the booster, obviously. So the question I get from a lot of people is, okay, so I've been vaccinated, say some got in January. At what point is the booster needed? Because obviously your immune system gets weaker toward it. And then if you don't take it and you've been vaccinated, over time, will you be hospitalized because of the weakened vaccination?
The super good news is that the current vaccination that we've taken, I'm not talking about AstraZeneca, and I'm talking about the mRNA. That vaccine shows that you will feel, you'll have what looks like a really bad flu at worst at the moment. You're not seeing anybody die from it, okay? Even 8 or 9 months after the vaccination. So that's really good news. What appears to be the evidence from Israel is that your actual measurable antibodies, your measurable T cell response, starts to go down at 8 months. So somewhere between 8 months and a year, people are going to be starting to have a second shot. I don't want to be a predictor, but in this instance, I would put money on the CDC, on the FDA or the CDC recommending a year out that everybody get a booster.
Katie?
Quick question, again, something that I read, and I prefer to know what you think. That the Delta, because it is slightly different as opposed to droplets and atomized or whatever, what I read was that to be truly safe, a cloth mask, which would be like a one-ply, is not good enough. Of course, most of us aren't going to use N95s. Any mask is better than none, but it said that the multiple, like this is 2 plies, or the kind where you can put a filter, a coffee filter or something in there, is the best because these particulates, if you will, it's just such tiny little droplets. Is that true?
So I can't answer about whether cloth versus coffee mask, but what I can say is that all masks, whether they be industrial masks, whether they be gas masks, whatever, are designed to get a specific size of
Right.
particle out of the air. And the best that I know is when I looked at a whole array, that actually even a cloth mask like this makes a difference,
Yes.
but it won't in all circumstances prevent the particles going through. But I don't feel truly comfortable. I'm not a mask expert. All I can do is I can study the statistics from those who wear masks of any kind versus those who don't.
Right.
And it's striking.
Yeah, I was just thinking about it for the vaccination clinic. You know, we have volunteers and nurses there, and, you know, if that is, I try to read to know if that's the case, that make sure that, you know, Lisa,
Well, let me take that
Talk
as
about it.
homework and go and see what I can find out for
just,
you on
yeah, because, you know, we're going to be increasing the number of clinics probably very soon, and it would
Yep.
be nice to make sure we're still as safe as we were so long ago when we started and thought we were done.
I'll see if I can find anything on that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Dr. Levin? Dr. Levin, as always,
Thank
thank
you,
you
sir.
very
Thank you
much
so
for
much.
leading the council. Thank you.
Item 6, Lisa, Health Department?
Lisa
No?
could not make it tonight.
Okay. You want
So-
to read something?
Yep.
Okay,
So I'll address that in our mayor's comments.
okay.
And
That takes us to item 7.
thank you. So first, I'd like to start off, I know Ron is in the back, right, Ron? And Ron has written a book on Florence Chandler Maybrick. So we'd like to do a proclamation honoring Ms. Maybrick. And since the mics are geared up this way, I'll do it from the seat of the chair. But Ron, if you'd like to come up to the podium. Good. Whereas in 1917, communities in New Milford and Kent, Connecticut, welcomed a poor stranger who went by the name of Miss Florence Chandler, a small, well-bred lady with a mysterious past, and lived in Gaylordsville neighborhood bordering New Milford and Kent. And whereas in 1923, on Old Stone Road, located in the town of Kent, Miss Samuel Bartlett and Mr. Richard Kryler established South Kent School, modeled on the Kent School from which the two founders were alumni, soon after which the new school house mother, Sister Clara Dunlin, extended a selfless hand of friendship to Miss Chandler. Sister Dunlin died in 1933 and was interred near the school chapel, now known as St. Michael's, on the South Kent School campus, prompting Miss Chandler to request permission to be buried near her dear friend, but which granted by the South Kent School co-founder and headmaster, Mr. Samuel Bartlett. And whereas on the morning of October 23rd, 1941, Miss Chandler was found dead in her home by her neighbor and was buried next to Miss Doolin near the chapel at South Kent School. The day after her death, Florence Chandler Maybrick's obituary ran, at the top of the front page of the New York Times, reporting her death in Gaylordsville, revealing her hidden identity as the defendant in the famous 1889 murder trial in Liverpool, and recalling her amazing life story. And whereas Florence, a young lady born in Mobile, Alabama, during the Civil War, from a prominent American family, married James Maybrick, an older British cotton broker with whom she had 2 children, living in Liverpool before discovering her husband's second wife, with whom had 5 children, as well as a long-time addiction to arsenic and strychnine powders. In 1889, when James Maybrick abruptly died from a stomach disorder, his brother Michael unjustly accused Florence of poisoning her husband, then led the charge to have her arrested, tried, convicted, and sentenced to hang for the murder. And whereas subsequent evidence proving Florence's innocence and exonerating her from this crime indicates that James was killed by his brother Michael, believed to be the psychopath murderer Jack the Ripper, whom with his brother Edwin poisoned James and frames Florence for the murder of her husband, subsequently confiscating her 2 young children and entire estate. And whereas a gallows was built outside Miss Maybrick's cell, the injustice of her arrest and trial created a public uproar not just in Liverpool, but on both sides of the Atlantic, prompting urgent diplomatic appeals by Vice President Levi P. Morton and the wives of President Benjamin Harrison's entire cabinet. And whereas in 1904 Florence was released from prison, returned to the States to find many supporters, to write a book entitled My 15 Lost Years, and to manage a successful tour on the lecture circuit, advocating for prison reform and always declaring herself innocent of the murder of her husband. And whereas on the 23rd of October, 2021, marks the 80th anniversary of the end of the tragic life of Florence Chandler Maybrick, an event which unexpectedly, during the advent of the Second World War, put both Gaylordsville and South Kent on the top front page of the New York Times for the first time and only time, thus bringing the world's attention to our great town. Now therefore I, PPAS Mayor, do hereby proclaim Saturday, October 23rd, 2021, to be known as Florence Chandler Maybrick Day.
Right.
Ron, if you kind of want to give a little synopsis, since you're writing a book about it?
Yes, I am. As some of you may know, I did a presentation at the New Milford Historical Society and Museum in September 2 years ago. And so I have, yes, I'm working on the book. Separate from that, which, you know, I cannot say actually when that will likely to come out. I would hope that it would come out in the beginning of next year. But separate from that, I knew that this date was coming up, the 80th anniversary of her passing in her little house on Old Stone Road in Gaylordsville. And in view of the evidence exonerating her, I felt that it would be appropriate for us to have a moment to recognize that she was a historic personage here, and that the communities of Gaylordsville here in New Milford, as well as the community in South Kent and at South Kent School, supported her, you know, throughout the Depression. And so part of the purpose of doing this is also to honor those communities as well.
Great.
Well, thank you, Ron. We'd like
Sounds
to give you
interesting.
this present.
Would you like to take a picture, Mayor?
Very good, thank you.
You want a picture, Mayor?
Ron ran his book, he's famous.
Right.
We don't know who he is because he's wearing a mask.
Thank you very much.
Hang on. Hang on. If you want a picture, you gotta wait for me to get the camera. Okay. All right. Give me a smile behind those masks. Thank you.
Thank you again, Ron. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you, Ron.
Thank you, Ron.
Katie, I'll see you Wednesday.
Yes, you,
For next time.
yes, you will, with your masks on, please.
Absolutely. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ron.
Okay. Next, mayor's comments, giving our COVID statistics, as we do each town council meeting, and these, as we said before, isn't in how many people currently have the COVID virus. This is in totality since last March, a year ago March. So the state of Connecticut is at 327,715. Litchfield County is at 13,278, which was up 32 from Friday. Hospitalizations for the entire county are at 1, which was unchanged from Friday. New Milford is at 2,480, which is up 10 from Friday. Our vaccine totals is so far for first dose for New Milford is 18,342, which is 68.43%. Fully vaccinated is at 17,183, which is 64.10%. This is a 7 to 10 day lag time due to the numbers that we get from the state. As we say each and every town council meeting, we cannot thank our volunteer army enough of those working in the vaccine clinic. Cannot thank New Vance enough for bringing their vaccinators as a partnership with the town. We continue with our vaccination clinics on Wednesdays. We're also going to be now implementing COVID-19 testing again, and that's going to be done starting this Wednesday. And then from then on, it's going to go Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. We're going to skip Thursday, and then Friday from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. So if you feel that you're under the weather or the doctor assigns you, this is free COVID testing. That can be done at Pettibone at the Horseshoe.
Drive up.
A drive up, yep.
Right.
And again, thank you to Lisa and the health department for their continued efforts in us trying to put an end to it, at least in New Milford. As Dr. Levin had said, I've asked the governor's office to see about getting the booster shots as soon as they possibly can. Because as Moderna had put out in the Wall Street Journal article, same as Dr. Levin had stated, that they believe booster shots should be done in 8 months. Our first responders were done in January. So if you just do the basic math, you know that the 8 months has passed. New Milford, just about. We want to make sure that our elderly, our first responders, that first set of cohorts that were immunized, can get that booster shot to help keep our first responders and elderly safe. I know that we have a plan in place as soon as it is available to do so. I've been working with Lisa as to getting those cohorts, because we did have a lot of data that we gathered as we were doing the first cohorts and getting all that information. We'll be able to contact those first responders and elderly first and set up those booster shots when they do become available. Also, through our vaccine clinic, we're going to be offering flu shots as well. And that will be the stronger flu shots for those elderly or immunized compromised. And then we'll have the regular flu vaccine for those that need the regular shots as well. And the good news is, hopefully, we'll be doing those starting in September. And when the boosters do become available, you'll be able to get both shots at once if you want, one in each arm, as Lisa was saying.
idea.
So we're happy to be able to provide that service. As far as our road work, we continue on year 4 on those. And kind of the roads that we've already done so far. It's West Street, Dorset Drive, North Valley Road, Burnham Road, Vista Drive, White Swan Drive, Gregory Drive, Woodward Drive. Drainage has been completed on the following roads: Dorset, North Valley, Vista, White Swan, Gregory, New Preston Hill, and Sawyer Hill roads. We're still working on the road work on Station Road, Brown's Forge, which they put the top binder on, Long Mountain the same, River Road, Sawyer Hill Road, New Preston Road. We continue to work on that. Chip sealing, we're going to be doing Dawns Road, Heacock Lane, Mallets, Upper Mallets, Weantonock. Skim paving is Connolly and Outlook. So hopefully we'll have all that done by the end of October. Halloween, October 31st, is a tentative day that we should be completed, and I will continue to update the town council as we continue to move forward. On our New Milford High School roof and our town hall roof, the contractors have been awarded their bids. We were looking to schedule the town hall roof for the middle of August, and the high school roof was tentative for the end of August. They've actually been pushed back 6 weeks, and that's due to they don't have the material. There's a material shortage, so they've placed those orders, and they told Dean Petroselli, who's our architect, that they were figuring it would be about a 6-week time delay, and then they'll be get going. As far as the New Milford High School roof, speaking with Superintendent DeCorpo, she's worked out a plan with the construction company that's doing this work, and Dean Petroselli to allow us to do the work during school time as well. So with that in mind, they still feel comfortable, even with a 6-week delay, to have this done before the end of January. So that's pretty exciting. So I'll have more information as we move forward with that. Library construction update. The contractor continues with the installation of the window frames. Sheetrock on the second floor, installation on the first floor, and they're still doing plumbing and electrical work. We're still on target for the 3rd week of January to have that open to the public, and we're very excited about that. Century Brass, contractor continues the steel removal. We're excited to finally get that project underway. Hopefully within the next month, that will be fully taken off the site, which is a great first step in bringing the Century Brass project closer to fruition. The New Milford Police Department, I'm excited to let the town council know we've implemented our new next-gen system, which is the operating system from the dispatch all the way through the PD, all the way through records. So we've already began that implementation. They're already working with that, and it's bringing the New Milford Police Department to the 21st century.
Great,
So we're very excited about that.
great.
Today, Chief Ceruto, Brookfield Police Major Puglisi, our New Milford and Brookfield PD, Waterwich Fire Chief Squires, Northfield Fire Chief Harris, Waterwich Captain Delaney, New Milford Assistant Fire Marshal Pagan, New Milford Ambulance, New Milford Dispatch, CERT, our New Milford Police Cadets. We had our active aggressor training at Pettibone. I want to thank Superintendent DeCorpo and her staff for attending as we continue to prepare for any scenarios that may affect our citizens, especially our children.
Great.
So I'm very pleased with what we saw, how the planning is put in process, and how the town and the Board of Ed and Superintendent DeCorpo are working together to make sure we continue those trainings. Our building inspector let us know that last week we had 53 new permits that were applied for, 87 inspections were done, and 64 permits were issued. And speaking with Bill, we're still showing strong demand within the building trades and housing, which is very good news for the town. Senior Center, last week they had 54 seniors and they provided 94 seniors services to seniors. Bus rides, there was 62 seniors for 240 rides. And 23 seniors is the average for the in-person lunches that we're now doing for our seniors, which is great. They were very excited, the fact that they're able to come in to the senior center in a safe manner and being able to kind of participate in some of the things, including a midweek matinee, which is every Wednesday at 1 p.m. after their lunch. They also have they've welcomed back their writers group, which is on Thursdays at 11 a.m. They're doing bingo again, and that's Mondays at 12:45. So thank you to Jasmine and her team for continuing to do that. And our youth agency, they're going to be doing some live music on Friday, August 20th at the Max, 7 p.m., no cover charge. Food will be available. Also, as we've talked about here, they've started their no-cost counseling services for middle and high school students. As we've talked about this before, this was one of the things that we were partnering with the Board of Education on. As we were aware with the hybrid learning that happened last year, there was a number of students that felt isolated, depressed. So this is one of the things that we are looking to help, which is create these counseling services. The youth agency last week at the Max held a murder mystery performance. So we want to thank the cast and everybody that came out to support the cast. It was well received. Park and Rec, we want to thank all the volunteers who helped make, and Santa Claus,
Yeah.
who helped make the Winter Carnival possible that we had on the green. And it was a wonderful turnout. Also want to thank Park and Rec for last week for their 5K and 8-mile race. I know, Mike, that was a lot of people were there. I think it was almost 400 runners we had. So it was great to see that come back again, and a lot of people, happy people, going out and enjoying the wonderful weather. Also, this past Saturday, we had our concert on the green, so thank you to Lou Mandler and the Arts Commission. Wanda Houston did a wonderful performance there, and it's great to see all the people out enjoying some wonderful music. Also, congratulations to the New Milford Fire, our semi-pro football team, as they won 51-21 against the Mustangs, and that's propelling them to get into the playoffs, so we're excited about that. Also want to thank our DPW Director, Jack Healy, as we instituted our intern program this year at the DPW. And thank you to our interns, Logan O'Donnell, who is from WPI, Tanya Gomez Costa, she was from UConn, Yasmin Jetty from UConn, Chris Morales from UConn. Also want to thank our fellow council person, Katie Francis, of the United Way of Western Connecticut, and all the volunteers for their school backpack program, which help our students get prepared for going back to school this year. So thank you, Katie, and the United Way.
Happy to do it.
Congratulations to our Councilman Mike Nahom, as also the girls' track team, and Shay Zettler, Sydney Keller, Claire Daniels, Madeline Sweeney for their 5th place finish in the girls' 4x1 mile relay championship at the NSAF National Outdoor Track Championships. I had a chance to meet these wonderful young ladies, and they showed real class and pride for New Milford. So Mike, thank you and your team for that. Also very proud that New Milford has our first female cricket team,
Yay.
the New Milford Tigers. So thank you to Jay Singh and the New Milford Cricket Club as they keep expanding the sport here in New Milford and throughout the state, and good luck to the Tigers. Also would like the town council to know that I was speaking with our social services director, Ivana Butera, and a couple things. One is the state has now announced a low-income water assistance program, which we'll be pushing out on our site tomorrow. It's just starting out, and what that'll help is those with lower income, being able to pay their water bill and their sewer bill. So that'll be state-funded money, and we'll be pushing out. It's just coming to fruition now, but Ivana wanted to let us know. Also, she wanted to share, we started our financial literacy course last week, so it's off to a great start. Actually, they've had 2 classes, which was last week. They have 15 registered people for our first wave of class, and the ages range from 20 to 24 years through 50 to 59 years. The most represented of the age group is the 35 to 49 years of age. And the top 3 topics most interested for our students are investing, budgeting, and savings, followed by managing credit and taxes. So that's great. We're going to continue with these classes, and it's something, as we talked about before, that we can help our residents when it comes to financial literacy.
That's a great attendance.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for a brand
And
new
want to
program.
thank the culinary school, as they're going to do again their Eat Outside Day, which is Friday, August 27th, from 12 to 1. You can still order your lunch, have it on the green for $15. It's a tomato or mozzarella with pesto on a ciabatta roll, thank you, or roast pork with caramelized onions and provolone. I had that the last time. That was pretty good, I gotta say. Turkey and Swiss cheese with lettuce and tomato. All sandwiches include potato chips, a chocolate chip cookie, and a bottle of water. So please, if you would like to help the culinary school, you can go to communityculinaryschool.org, and you can order your lunch for Eat Outside Day.
Or you can donate for
Or you
someone
can
who
donate.
can't afford the lunch to have a lunch.
Absolutely. And that's all I have so far.
That's a lot, Mayor.
Thank you, Katie.
That's a lot. Well, item number 8, we're moving on to a pension plan asset update. Tom Pilla?
Mayor, this is Tom Russell. For the record, Tom Pillar, Chairman of the Pension Committee. Can everyone hear me with this?
Yep.
Thank you. Tonight I'm updating you on the pension plan asset performance. The committee has worked long and hard on the oversight of the town's pension plan. Also, Finance Director and Plan Administrator Greg Ossipo and staff, Personal Director Greg Bolero and staff are also part of the overall, what I call the team. Recently, the committee members reviewed the pension plan assets with representatives from Principal Financial. The committee is extremely pleased to announce that the plan assets grew $10 million over the past fiscal year.
Yahoo.
Unprecedented.
Wow.
$10 million over the last fiscal year. Currently, the plan assets are trending upwards of $76 million. Over the last 8 years, plan assets value has more than doubled. 8 years ago, it was 38 million. Here's 76 million. October 2021, this coming October, the committee will present to the mayor and the town council the 2021 actuarial report, which explains current employee status, those retired, and future ARC contributions for the FY 22-23 budget. Thank you. I want to keep it brief. I know you have a lot on your plate, but we did a plan asset review. And then we'll have the actuarial, which comes in October. We'll do a full review of those that are on pension, those that are still employed, and those that are terminated but not they're vested but not eligible to collect. And then we'll look at the unfunded liabilities, which we amortize, and that's shrinking every year, which is great because we fund it. So the plan is strong. It takes pressure off the town's ARC contribution for the budget. Because otherwise, like I've said in the past, you'd have a pay-go system. You pay out $4 million, you budget $4 million. This takes the pressure off of that for you.
What percentage are we funded?
Probably 91%.
Now, where does that compare to other towns? Is anyone even close
Well,
to
I
that?
keep,
Way ahead.
good question.
Way ahead.
Good question.
Way
I
ahead.
keep newspaper articles, because I read the Denver News Times every day. And I look at, and I cut them out and I keep them in a folder. Because there's a learning curve in seeing what other towns, and the state's a mess.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Because in contract negotiations, you have to take a very hard look at the actuarial impact of what you're agreeing to. And if you go back to 1964, that was the evolution of the plan, and that was with John Hancock, who was an insurance company. And when I started to see the results in 2012, 2013, I said to the committee, that's it, we're moving on. Because when it was in 1964, it was, my words, a one-shoe-fit-all plan. But through the years, you know, then the police department was maybe 4 or 5 people. It's a lot more today. You have bargaining units today, which you didn't have then. It was a one-shoe-fit-all. And, you know, you want to be fair to employees. It's important, especially they dedicated a good portion of the, or all of their working career to the town. They want to have them leave with something. But you got to be able to afford the something. That's the key. And to take the pressure off the taxpayer who has to fund it, that's where the plan assets come in. And it gives the plan a lot of solidarity. So if you're a retiree and you're getting a pension check, fortunately, you're getting a pension check, you know there's some solid finances behind that. Now look at Detroit, Chapter 9 bankruptcy it's called. You know, and who knows what happens to pension plans when a city goes bankrupt. It's unfortunate, it's tragic.
Well, I hope our workers in this town realize what you've done for them and for our town. It's just amazing.
Thank you.
Above 90% funded.
Kate?
I just want to say, Tom, what you just said was one thing, Mike, that I think that the employees of the town will hear this and be very happy that you're involved. And I just want to thank you because your team has really done marvelous things if we look back years ago. And I think, you know, of course, things change in all areas of this type of investing or whatever. But you really have done a stellar job, and I thank you very much.
Yeah, the committee's worked very hard over the years, and
the plan administrator, which was, Ray Jankowski at one point, now it's Greg Ostapo, and Greg Bolero and stuff. Because they're all tangentially connected to the accuracy of, back 30 years ago, they wrote somebody's name on the back of a napkin and filed it, because they didn't have the systems that we have today that track when you were hired. Were you part-time or were you full-time? Because if you were part-time, they're not eligible. You have to be full-time. And at that time, it was difficult to track. But what we're doing today is we're forensic with it. And my personal issue with being forensic is some stuff that someone passes on and they live in another state. When do we find out about it? Social Security could come back and redact the money they took out of the account if it's still there. How do we get it back? If they're living in Oregon, we're gonna hire an attorney in Oregon? Doesn't work. So forensically to know when people's lives pass, and it stops. Unless there's a joint survivorship, then it goes to the spouse. But I'm right on that, on the legalese of all that. And Greg Bolero is doing a great job with that.
Well, we appreciate that, Tom, that you did clean up a lot of that. That's what
Oh, yeah.
you all have done for that.
And if for those who would like to have a full copy of this, I'll provide that to the mayor's office. And in the back, you'll see the contractual obligations for a bargaining unit. You'll see what each bargaining unit, which is a legislative decision. So you'll see that. So it's in the accumulative in the back of this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom.
Tom, thanks for your leadership and to the team.
Tommy's always great job. Thank you very much.
Excellent.
And Mike, that leads to last point, the strength of the town. We're in the 90%, which is very, very rare, especially for municipality. But also, when we partnered, and Dave was on the Board of Education at the time, when we partnered with the Board of Ed and went from self-insured medical to the SPP, cost avoidance in the millions of dollars. But we are, from what the actuarial told us, I believe the only town that if in fact that was to turn the opposite way, we've already have money set aside to go back to self-insured if we have to. So because of all this proper planning, we're able to be way more flexible and nimble, which gives us a better return on our investment for our taxpayers.
Good.
Thank you, Tom. Absolutely. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you,
Thank
Tom.
you,
Thanks, Tom.
In 1 year, that's great.
That's unbelievable.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah, can I give you mine?
I was gonna say, I might have to take care of mine.
I know.
I'm gonna say, who needs
Okay.
a financial advisor?
Yes.
Yes, right. So, item number 9, under the mayor, we're going to discuss the American Relief Funds.
Yes. So I just wanted to give an update to the council on a couple of things. First, we had put out our survey to the residents, and it's still open, and we're pushing it out. We've had 534 people that have filled out the survey. So if you haven't, please fill it out. You go to the town website, www.milford.org, go on the town page, right on the top, click survey. We'd love to hear from you what you think the ARP funds would do. Right now, overwhelmingly so far, with I believe 54% is infrastructure. Some of the other ones that are up there as well is stipends for first responders, is affordable housing, and the other one is health, public health. So those so far are kind of the top ones as well, and public safety as well.
How long will the survey be open,
Up
Mayor?
until the 14th.
Of
So,
August, right?
Yep, yep. And so far, what we've seen, which we'll be giving to you, the council, tonight, this is kind of a request that we've heard so far from both our department heads, as well as some of the recommendations from our council men and women here, as well as from the public so far. So the health department is asking for a request of about $240,000 to help their initiatives, and that's from Lisa Morrissey. The New Milford Senior Center Senior Citizens Advisory Board. So that advisory board helps with our senior center. When the senior center had to stop doing the meals in the cafeteria. They went out and actually were doing the deliveries. The state was covering that up to 100%. Back in January of this past year, they stopped it and only were giving us about 75%. That's when the Senior Citizen Advisory Board stepped in and covered the differential to the tune, as of right now, $71,137.75. So I would make the recommendation or suggestion to the council that we give that money back to them, because they do a lot of great things at Senior Advisory Board. So if there are seniors that have financial issues, they go to that board and they help seniors in that respect. So the Milford Fire Marshal's office has requested $15,900 for fire backpacks for both the fire marshal and the assistant fire marshal. Also, another one, I don't have a figure on it as of yet, but hopefully I will have that for you at our September meeting, is primary residence loans for capital repairs. As we talked about before, this is something that we already have, and we have used this with steep grant funding that we got years ago. We keep putting it in, but keep getting denied by the state. And basically what that is, if you have somebody that owns a home or a condominium, they've had a job loss, or a family member that has passed that was helping with the income, or has left if there's a divorce, and now they have a roof issue or a septic issue or a plumbing issue, that they could take advantage as long as they met the guidelines. The fund would then pay for that capital repair. It then would be put on their title at 0% interest. Then we put on their title. When they refinanced or sold their home, that money then would go back into the fund. Torrington currently has that fund. I believe they're over 10 million with their fund. And this helps provide stability to the neighborhood. So rather than having a foreclosure on your neighborhood or letting the house go into disrepair, you're able to help stabilize the neighborhood. Another opportunity is currently at Butterbrook and Glen Eyre, there is no generators for our senior housing. We've seen when we've had eventful weather events, whether they be the microburst or the tropical storm, where they've hit, if it happens to knock out power at our senior housing, currently our EOC plan is to move them to the senior center. A much better way is to keep them in place, which would be in their community rooms at Butterbrook. So one of the things I would recommend is that we get generators for all of our senior housing centers to allow that flexibility, to allow them to stay in place. The next is the Workforce Housing Fund that was approved by the town council, is to put some money into there. The next is for economic development, workforce training and development. The next will have infrastructure, broadband as well, which we're working with WesCOG. I'll provide some numbers for you there. The next is first responder and critical worker stipends. It was talked about the last town council meeting. The next is foreclosure and rental assistance. It was brought up at the last meeting. The next is assistance to the arts community. So it's been recommended that you put 1% of the total fund into the arts community. I would suggest instead of it being around $80,000, you make it $100,000. The same would be nonprofit assistance. I would recommend doing $100,000 for them as well. Also, you'd be looking at small business expansion and improvement grants and loans, as other towns and cities are currently doing now. Also, domestic violence, mental health, and addiction services opportunities. Another is child care assistance. As we found out before, when we had to go to hybrid learning and we had a workforce that had to go from home, we had some of our dual income households where they had to make a choice to not work versus to take care of their child. Some could not pay for child care to go back to work, so it'd be the opportunity to help with that as well. And that's currently, and the other one is wastewater treatment, and that would be assistance with connection fees to allow hookups, which is what is allowed under the ARP funds. So that's currently what we have so far. It's about 25 items. I'll send this to you guys tomorrow. So far what the requests are. And another thing I'd like to ask is with the town council, We've also told the public that we'd like to hold public meetings. I'd like to see us, with the approval of you, to do a joint meetings, 2 of them, with the Board of Finance, because they're also going to be in the mix as well. So if we could do 2 public meetings in September, it would allow the public to come and provide input, not only through the survey, or through going, if you're watching tonight, towncouncil@newmilford.org. You can also opine to the town council by email, or they could come to public meetings to give their input so that the council and the Board of Finance can hear from our public, which they believe would be most beneficial to them for these ARP funds.
So that would be prior to the council meeting?
Correct.
Right, great. 2 meetings in
We
September
wanna-
sounds
We
great.
might want to do that at a bigger venue.
Oh,
And just the council and finance alone is a fair amount of people.
Yep.
okay. Thank you,
Okay.
Mayor.
Yeah, I just wanted to make some comments on your list there.
Absolutely.
First of all, with the first responders and critical workers, I think we should consider the teachers as well. They went through a heck of a year last year, and this year isn't looking too promising either. They basically had to rewrite their curriculums 2-3 times, and coupled with technical issues, because you're making the assumption that everybody in all the students have technical computers at home, which may be true, but they may not have them available. So, these are some of the things I think we really need to, rather than say we support our critical workers, that we support our first responders, and that we support our teachers, let's show them that we do that. The other one, with the nonprofits, I think some of these items here could be covered and not taking out of the nonprofit you suggested. For example, with domestic violence, the Women's Center in Danbury has many, unfortunately, many clients from New Milford, which I think we should consider. It's a set-up agency. We don't have to worry about starting from the ground, and I think that should be part of that line there. Or we should consider adding it to that line there, because, same with substance abuse, some of the clinics that are already in place.
Absolutely. Chris?
Just a question, clarification. Dave, you mentioned the teachers, and no argument that they did a lot of great work during this, but the schools are getting their own American relief
They're
funding as
getting
well, right?
2.5 million.
Yeah, okay.
I understand that, but what I'm trying to say is, this is a community that we've consistently cut their funding. They're putting in their programming that they need to do. That's where their $2.5 million is going.
Kenny?
Let's look at it, what we're talking about. What I'm talking about with, what do we have? 250 in town employees, and not all of them would be eligible. So,
I would say, Dave, I would say every town employee that
Okay,
worked
so
through
let's go-
COVID is in my opinion, was a critical worker.
okay, so we're talking about 250 and about 300 in the school side. So you're talking 250,000 out of 7.9 million. I think that says a lot from us that we support all of the critical workers, regardless of the agencies that they're affiliated with. I'd love to do nurses too, but that's a private entity.
I just have a question.
Okay, sorry.
Can the ARF that the education side gets, can it be used for programs?
Yes.
Is that one of the
For example,
allowable-
it can be the remediation programs you could be using it for.
Oh, that kind, yes,
Yeah.
okay.
Oh, no,
okay.
no, no.
I gotcha.
Some of those things, some of the hardware, in case we get into a situation where they have to shut down again, and certainly the
Not to speak
health
for-
services,
Not
let's
to
put
speak
it.
for Superintendent DeCorpo nor the board, but from what my understanding is, the bulk of the 2.5 million is going to be going towards their mental health and physical health
Mm-hmm. Yeah, health
clinics that
sciences,
she's
yeah.
putting into the schools.
Yes,
great.
and as Dr. Levin just indicated, I think we have a lot to do there.
And I also believe that I have not put it in here, that we do need to take a chunk of this money and set it aside for COVID.
Yes.
And that's because this is going to be, from everything that we've heard so far from Dr. Levin, and I hear from state DPH, and so does Lisa, this is going to be something that's going to be here for a while. It's not going to go away in 6 months. You're talking about multiple years. And if we're going to have the vaccine clinic running, if we're going to be having, other responses, whether it be additional PPE requirements and everything else, as the Board of Ed did, I think we were very forward thinking. A lot of towns were not last year when we set aside that $1 million from the town, $1 million from the Board of Ed, and that paid off big dividends to the community by doing that. So I think that's something that the council should look at, setting aside a portion of this $7.9 million for COVID relief.
And there's a 4-year time
Right.
frame with which you have to
Oh,
use
I
it,
think we
so.
can find.
Yeah, no, but I think
someone.
that's appropriate, especially for something that, like quantity of money.
Well, it's the
for that.
unknown is what
Yeah,
it is.
absolutely.
I mean,
Randy?
Mayor, I think, I don't mean to be Simon LeGree here, but I received the Code of Federal Regulations today on this. And I'm analyzing it now. I've spent a few hours already analyzing it. It's not something that's going to be a wish list.
Absolutely.
I'm not
No.
raining on anybody's parade.
No.
But the fact is that it's got to be expended within a certain period of time, as Councilman
4 years.
Vice Chair stated. And it has to be at least arguably related to a COVID-impacted matter. Housing. You talk about housing. You talk about people who are unemployed. You talk about food assistance, childcare, things of that nature. So I think when you have your public hearing, they need to understand it is not a wish list.
Right.
And the first responders are key. The stipend issue is a great idea because it's provided for in here. But there are a lot of things called proportionality in here too.
Absolutely.
And so I just want
yeah,
council to know
I'm
that.
saying $500. I'm not
Oh,
saying
yeah,
20,000
and I'll brief you.
apiece, even
I'll
though
brief
they're
you on
worth
it
it.
after I get I'm going to wade through this and then the guidelines as well. And I just got them today, so I just.
I think we plan to, before the public meetings, to make it very clear what those can't do and
The
can do,
parameters, yeah.
right? Because, I mean, there are fine lines with some things, as you just pointed out. It sounds like you can, but in reality, according to that, and that's what we have to follow, what you just received today?
Yeah, just literally hot off the press. Yeah.
Really?
And from what I read from the overview, correct me if I'm wrong, if we make an expenditure and 10 years later, the federal government says
On the
that
audit.
didn't follow it, we then have to give that money back 10
Well,
years down the road?
they have that authority to do that. It's not like the single audit in Connecticut. Once you have an audit, that's it. But there is a timeline that they could do this. I don't know if it's going to be 10 years.
Okay.
But we really have to follow the rules, and not that we don't, not that any of my towns don't. But the fact is that this is the biggest one.
And one of the things is we talked about from the very beginning, this is once in a lifetime funds that the town is going to receive.
Right.
Yeah.
You don't
Yeah.
expect to get something like this again, so this should be something that will help, as the art funds has stated, bring whatever it is we are giving this money to out of COVID
Right.
for a response. And that if we're looking to do something that's operationally, you have to be upfront with the taxpayer that this is something that would be added in as a budgetary item
Right.
later on. So the goal is to try and, in my opinion, get as much bang as you can out of this
Right.
dollar to get the town in a better position. It's in a great position now, but in a better position.
Right, because if
due
we
to
were to
COVID.
use it for something that, once the money is used, it would cost the taxpayers X% more to maintain it. That's not the intent of this, nor would I think it would be the intent of those of us that are
No,
taxpayers.
it's a one-shot deal.
Yeah, I mean, there's certain tolerance for something that might need help continuing, but,
I
yeah.
think about the only thing that's capital on there would be the backpacks, but I think that's arguably
Yeah.
well within the parameters.
Mike?
That's all right.
Okay. Any other, Walter?
As Attorney DeBella pointed out, we got to be very careful. It is not a wish list.
Absolutely.
That's right.
Got to be very careful of that when we are doing this.
Absolutely. Okay.
Okay, so 9B, I would like to move that we approve the draft of the affordable housing plan with the caveat that it remain in all aspects within the guidelines of the New Milford zoning regulations.
Second?
Any
The
discussion?
existing regulations.
Right.
Let me
Any
add that.
discussion?
Yes.
Dave?
Well, I know we talked about it at the last meeting, but I think this is a good plan. However, I also think it just falls a little bit short. What do I mean by that? I'm talking about, we've been talking about nonprofits all along here. And I think that and even tax abatements for that matter, and I think that we should have a tax abatement, preferably of 100%, for the nonprofit housing here in New Milford. That would help them tremendously. Now, like you said earlier, yeah, we don't want any nonprofit coming in, obviously serving our residents, but having at least 50%, probably more, of their units for those that fall below the state median income. And I'd say even at the 50% level, and put it that way, because, the property taxes on nonprofits are a big chunk of their budget, And the way I see it, we're saving money by investing now rather than down the road, when we could have very severe problems, unemployment, this, that, and the other. And a lot of these, just to clarify, I know when I first started teaching, I can't comment now, I fell below, a professional with a master's degree, I was below the median. And that was being single. So I think the group of people that would be servicing is very eclectic, shall we say, and wide-ranging. So I'd like to move that we put in an abatement for the nonprofits that do provide the housing on their property taxes.
So Dave, I think that abatement would have to be its own different thing. I don't think it would be in the affordable housing plan. I think it'd be an abatement as we've done all the other abatements, which is, am I correct, Randy?
Yes, it would have to be done by the town council as a standalone.
Yep.
But you can do it.
So we could put
Well,
that on the next.
But I'm saying permanently,
Yeah, we
not
could put that
5
on
years.
Yeah,
We could
permanent.
put that on the next agenda to talk about it that way, Dave.
Okay,
Right, let's do
fine.
that.
Okay. Mike?
I just have, the nonprofits and how they're helping is great, but you gotta be careful as we start giving, taking away property tax revenue to the town, because now you're making living in New Milford more expensive for everyone else that has to pay those taxes. This money's coming from somewhere to pay. If you're not paying taxes here, then guess what? Everyone else has to pay a little bit higher share.
And that's true with our businesses that we gave the abatements
No,
to as well.
that's not true. Those are pieces of land that you're getting this much tax for. And what they do is they build on it, and then over time, then you will have to pay tax on that. It doesn't change. You do not lose tax revenue from a piece of land that's empty, but if you entice someone to build on it, it creates jobs, and
Well-
down the road, it does help. So
Well,
that's
we'll
a
put it on
completely
the-
wrong statement.
We'll put it on the agenda for
Right.
our
And
next
Mayor,
meeting.
I'd like to see it on the agenda, and I'd like to have the actual figures of what that
That's
means.
fair enough, yes.
Because, because, I
Sure,
don't know that it's a lot,
absolutely.
but I don't know. So I think that's a good point if we're going to discuss it, to
And
know.
I think we should also have, as we have the mechanism for the commercial abatements, right? So there's, as Mike had said, there's a return on investment to the taxpayer as to how you do that. I also think we should have, and I'd ask Randy if he could help us with how you go about qualifying for an abatement if the town council so chooses to do something like that, how that entity would qualify. And I'm assuming we do the same as we would with the nonprofits. You'd have one of our entities, whether it be an assessor or someone from our finance department, check the finances of the nonprofit, make sure that they're totally up to date. They're what are they, 990s, Randy? Is that what they are?
Right.
Yeah,
And they
Their
must
990s
maintain the
occurrence.
percentage
Correct.
of lower income people that start with, because that's another area that doesn't get watched
But I mean, that's
closely.
something we put on the next agenda and kind of talk about.
Yes, great idea.
No, I agree with Mike too. As a business person, you want to entice people to come here for business. We're not talking about permanent abatement. So if somebody has a piece of land that's empty and it's $100,000, but they're going to have a $5 million building on there. So after if you give them a 5-year abatement, now you're paying taxes on a $5 million building. So you're going to get that money back tenfold over time for 20 years.
Well,
So it's a simple
that-
math. It's not that hard
Well,
to
that's
understand.
assuming the business survives, because I've been in
Yes.
this town long enough to see
Well,
many
that's
Right, I
up
was
to
just
the
gonna
businesses.
say,
That's up to the business,
we
but
have
they
a
still have to
couple
pay
that
tax on the
didn't
building.
make it, right.
Just as a comment, don't get me wrong, David, I agree that if you can make housing affordable for people in this town, all the other issues go away. Then they have more money for food,
That's right.
clothing, all the other things.
Right.
I agree we have to come up with a plan. I just don't want to just do it that way. We have to figure out how to get housing affordable, whether it's through
Right.
the state or not. And-
Because we're not gonna have any people
Yeah.
living here.
You know, you see it in every resort town. It's like you can't get people to work because they can't afford to live in
Well,
towns.
it's an equation on affordable housing, and part of that is income.
Yep.
So economic development and increasing income helps make
They go
housing more
hand in
affordable.
hand.
Yeah,
They go
absolutely.
hand in hand.
Well, as I said, the affordable housing is not meant as a permanent place for
Right.
people.
Right.
It's a step.
It's just to give them a push so they can get going.
So we have a motion on the floor with the caveat that Councilman Francis
That
put in
all
there.
aspects must conform with the existing New Milford zoning regulations, yes.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions?
I'm opposing it. I think the abatement should be in there.
Okay. 9C, I'd like to move we adopt the resolution for the Western Connecticut Council of Government. It's a multi-town hazardous plan. It's an update to that plan. It was in your packages. And,
Hey, Dave, how are you?
I work with
Oh.
SLR Consulting, formerly my mother Groom.
yes, that's familiar.
And,
Isn't that nice to put you last?
So we have a
I made it.
motion. Can we just, so we have a motion? Do we have a second? I
Second.
didn't hear it. Okay, Chris, thanks. Hi.
sorry about that. So I'm just here for questions if you have any, but I can give a couple statements if you'd like me to.
Yes. I think the council would like.
Okay. So the town adopted this plan last in December 2015. I don't think I remember any of you from that council meeting, but it was me who was here. So this is an update of that plan. What's different this time is instead of it being only for the town of New Milford, you have a chapter in the WesCOG plan. But a lot of the text in that chapter is very similar. So it describes the natural hazards that could occur, the losses that could occur. You have 27 proposed mitigation actions, which range from, some of them are state initiatives, like dealing with repetitive loss properties that experience flooding. Some of them are about historic resources, that sort of thing. They all come from the state. And then we have a bunch of actions which come from all of you and your staff members. So Grove Street landslides is still in there. There's a lot of flood related. There's a couple generators, that sort of thing. So importantly, these plans are not mandates. They're just funding vehicles. So having it means that you're eligible to apply for FEMA grants.
Great.
And that's it.
Any questions? Chris?
Just a question, and maybe this is for Randy. You mentioned New Milford Board of Selectmen.
I
a few
just,
times.
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
Should that be, is there an issue with having that language? in
Yeah,
there versus town
No, there
council?
really isn't, because our charter and our ordinances contain a corrector.
Okay.
But the fact is that the mayor is instructed to go through all these ordinances and try to get some essentially administrative.
You didn't get them all done yet?
I think. Thanks, Katie. Okay,
Thursday, I think he's gonna get it done.
Well, I
Spell
agree.
check.
I think David suggested that too,
Spell check.
during one of the presentations.
That's our error. So if you,
But we're covered, right, Randy?
Well,
Yes,
I
it's
think town,
That's
but,
all.
The town council, substitute town council for Board of Selectmen.
Okay.
yes,
Excellent.
that makes it much
Right.
clearer.
And I just have one other comment.
Thank you.
I was here in 2015.
oh,
And I do remember.
Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Thank you for coming tonight. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to the item that we added, item number 10. We'd like to move that this is our workforce housing fund. I would like to move that we appropriate $1,000 to start the workforce housing fund. Those funds to come from
Contingency or any other account that the finance
finance
director
director approves.
approves?
Okay. That's the motion.
Well, you know what I'm gonna say.
Yeah, here we go. Where's it coming from?
I have to know where it's coming from.
Dave, I agree with you.
I really
Do
do.
we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mike.
Just make contingency then.
Contingency. Got that, Susan?
This $1,000 begins, it sets the fund up, and it allows for us to get the paperwork going and get everything done.
Right, which is great.
Yep. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you, everybody.
Hey, Mayor,
Mike?
before we go, I have a question for Randy, because I was told that one of the reasons, and I don't want to get into whether masks work or don't work, but one of the reasons we went to masks in town buildings was because we could be liable if we don't. And can you touch a little bit on that, and what could happen if we didn't have masks and someone got COVID?
It's a case that I would never take, or any lawyer worth his salt would take, because you're not gonna prove that you got it here.
Right.
So a liability should not be one of the reasons why we have to wear masks.
I think that's a red herring. I don't believe it is. I don't think it's a risk.
Unless you knew you had COVID.
No, I'm not, I'm just, if we decide to do it because it's safe, and then Lisa's not here, so I don't want to get into that detail, because that's more her preferred. If we decide it's needed because of safety and health, that's great, but I don't want to have to say we're wearing masks because we're afraid against it.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
No, you wanna do it because of courtesy and societal responsibility.
So-
If it's, yeah, that's.
Liability is not a reason.
We willingly decided of our own free will and sound state of mind to come into this room and sit together, just like all the volunteers in our vaccination clinic have done. I think that, as Randy said, it would be very hard to claim any liability there when you walked into it, knowing that you're wearing a mask to do what you're doing. So,
Yeah, as I said, I don't want to get into the details because Lisa's not here, and that's the person I would speak upon. She's the health director. I just want to make sure it wasn't a liability thing. That's what I only
So
want.
Randy, just to answer Mike's question, to go a little deeper into it, okay? So if you have the State Department of Public Health, you have your health director stating that there could be a increase of COVID within your town employee base, and you chose to not take those recommendations, does that put the town in any sort of higher risk as far as litigation?
Now, you just mentioned the class of a person being an employee.
Correct.
Yeah, you're gonna have a presumption that the employee.
And would you also have an issue with the unions too?
You could. It depends on how detailed the union wants
Thank
to
you.
get. But it could be a work condition that needs to be negotiated.
Yep.
You need
but
to
for a
understand that.
volunteer, such as.
No, if you're a volunteer and you're on premises and you contract COVID, you're not presumed to have contracted it. If you're an
Exactly.
employee, you are.
Yes, that's right.
But the fact
We're
is
talking about
that
us.
as a matter of evidence, proof, which is my world, there's no way that I can see anybody proving that they got it here unless they lived in a bubble till they got here. If they went to Stop and Shop, they could have gotten it there. They're not going to sustain the burden of, what we call the burden of proof in a
Correct.
civil case. Will I have to defend it? Sure. They can't get to a jury. A judge will not let that case go to a jury.
And how much would I get in my suit?
You probably get a good bill from a lawyer. But
And they're pretty expensive, aren't
And
they?
they're expensive, those lawyers.
Depends on who the lawyer is. But I will tell you, yes, I've gotten that question throughout this county. And the fact is that, sure, anybody can sue anybody. We see that every day. But as a trial lawyer, I can't prove that. Did you go to Stop and Shop last week? Did you go to church? Did you do anything?
But what Pete is saying, though, the burden of proof from an employee, though, is very
It's
different.
our burden at that point.
Right.
That's different. And that's for workers' comp. Because they can't sue us. It's workers'
Yep.
comp.
Can't sue your lawyer.
Okay.
Right.
I knew we should have asked for a raise.
All right, Walter.
Motion to adjourn, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Thank
Any
you, Walter.
discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, everybody, and thank you for everybody that was watching tonight as well.
Yes, thank you all. And Eric, thanks for staying with us.
Eric, thank you.
Really?